Just like that, we are back. How's it going? Happy Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern. As always, time for an RCS Live. I am Nate Mumford, Director of Sales Engineering, still hanging out with you. And today we're talking about GSelector's S3 schedule subscription service and how to essentially have one master music log sent out to all of your affiliates, or we call them subscribers and publishers and all that good stuff. But we'll dive into the vocabulary in just a second. Let's check and see here. Of course, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter Live. The usual thing there. We have our chat open. If you have any questions for me, especially in the GSelector world, I'm here to help you out. As you know, a couple housekeeping things to get out of the way first. Don't forget your backup paths, data exchanges, all of that good stuff. Remember, it's been a while. File, data exchange, and GSelector. You can send and receive a data exchange as part of your contract in GSelector. You get some cloud backups. That's right. Everybody loves the buzzword cloud. The idea is that we have our data exchange recovery. And so when you send yourself a data exchange, first things first, like typically when I used to do it was music changes day and Fridays. I would send myself a data exchange. Send it to your, music director. It doesn't really matter who. We keep a copy of your most recent data exchange. And so if anything ever happens, we can always restore that data exchange and to any type of environment that we want. Remember, it's an enterprise solution with GSelector. So if we take an enterprise backup, and let's just say one station in the enterprise is compromised, we've all been there at some point in time. Somebody goes and mass changes a bunch of music. They say, there's a warning that pops up. Are you sure? You say yes. We have a warning that says, are you sure? Are you sure? You say yes. And yeah, we actually have some areas of GSelector 3 warnings. And people ask, why is there 3 warnings here? And it's because people keep ignoring those warnings. So just a friendly reminder, check your backup paths, send yourself data exchanges. By the way, I am on the beta of GSelector 5.1. And why is that important? Because tools configuration. Over here on jobs, there's a brand new data exchange job. I'm so excited for this. I'm thrilled that this is in the new version of GSelector. So some cool stuff there as well. If you want to be a beta user, you can reach out to your local RCS contact. We got Zeta 522.1 in beta right now. If only there was, some past video that you can reference to see all the new features in Zeta 522.1. Oh, look at that. There is. It's over at rcsworks.com/RCS-live. I know we were just at IBC, had a fantastic week over there. We have some other great events coming up too, including NAB in the fall show and so much more. You can check out a full list over at our website, rcsworks.com. Oh, I love this. How's it going, everybody? Nick, how's it going? And let's see, we got Bruno here checking in too as well. Thank you, Bruno. Any questions, let me know, okay? Love to hear from you. Awesome. So let's dive right in and let's talk about some GSelector S3. Oh, before I forget too, by the way, we are hiring still as well. Had a new position open up for our field technician services installation team. That's a really, really important role. Love that. So if you're an engineer, got some programming experience or engineering experience, definitely check that out on our website, rcsworks.com. There's a career page under the About Us. And of course, if you get hired, tell them that Nate sent you, so I get a reimbursement. I'm kidding, of course. So let's talk about GSelector's S3, right? Schedule subscription service. That's complicated. Just treat this as a simple S3, right? The idea with S3 is that we have the concept of publishers and subscribers. The publisher is going to build your music log. And I have a case here of classic rock. So listen, at the end of the day, classic rock, top 40, some of these formats just kind of dictate themselves, right? You're going to play the same Aerosmith, Rolling Stones songs. You're going to play the same, Katy Perry and Lady Gaga into Lil Nas X or whoever it is, that you play on there on the top 40 side. And so you want to have your music format champion, your master music logger, wherever that person may be. And the idea is that I'm going to create one master music log that is the publisher, and that's going to be sent to all my subscribers who want to have that music log. But the key thing here is we want to maintain local identity local clock structure and local imaging and spots, right? That's the key thing here is the music is great, but I need to make sure I maintain my identity as a local station. And you might think to yourself, hey, you know what, Nate? This is kind of sound like kind of big boy programming here, and I'm not really into that. But that's not the case. And the reason I'm talking about this today is because we have a lot of users who have interpreted this at a much smaller but simplistic scale. The idea that we have some users that take their HD2s, for example, and then mass distribute their HD2 formats because, let's be honest, it's an HD2. You don't want your FM and your powerhouse, station focusing on, let's say, a couple smaller formats for an HD2. At the same time, if you have a major market, or let's say you have a very interesting niche in there, you could fulfill that, right? Or we have a lot of our clients have kind of a geographic region where they have, let's say, 10 stations in the state. Some are, let's say, country, some are classic rock. Why not just go and have some of those be a little more uniform across the board? Because geographically speaking, they're not the same audience, right? But, when it comes to employees, it's a little different, right? That's the whole idea. So I'm trying to find ways for you to maximize some of this, right? That's the idea here. I'm just pulling up my little feed here to make sure I don't forget anybody, right? Cool. Awesome. Elroy, let me know if you need anything, okay? So we're going to kind of outline this overall from start to finish. The first thing we're going to focus on here is going to be our little subscription manager over here. Ignore some of those text on there. This is all catered to how you have your environment set up. So the idea is first we start with the publishers, and you can see here the subscribers and the audit trail. And I should point out too, by the way, this is something that is free and part of your GSelector contract because we have a one-to-one output when it comes to GSelector. So obviously, if I'm the main format and I'm outputting to, let's say, my HD2 across the board, the HD2 has the license for GSelector. So we don't really mind what you're doing here in regards to the subscription manager because you're still getting that one-to-one output at the end of the day. So you can see on the left-hand side, I have my format center. I have a couple formats here on the right-hand side. Mine's pretty simplistic, but you can get pretty creative on here as well. The idea is that you can have essentially multiple formats, identify multiple format captains that could be in different geographic locations, but you have one centralized subscription manager to make sure everybody gets all of those music logs. And yes, we do need network connectivity here. That's pretty typical these days that I've found in more modern radio, but if that's an issue, we can discuss about that later. But typically I found that usually most sites are connected in some kind of realm in there as well. And of course, if you have the Zeta world, right? Zetas are Zcasting, maybe site repping to something else. We always piggyback our GSelector on our Zeta servers. So that means we have those connections already made as well. So we identify multiple format centers or multiple formats. We identify the stations within GSelector here. I'm moving pretty quickly for time, but just know if you ever want to get deeper dive in some of these things, we're here to help out as well. So I'm kind of skimming the surface, answering your questions. If you want me to dive further, I can definitely help you here as well. So the idea is we create subscriptions, right? This is my classic rock X3 station. If I let's say pretend to create a new one just for a second here, we give it a subscriber name, a description, some of these behaviors, things they can do, things they can't do, stuff like that. That's when we create the profile itself. I have found in my experience, you want to make this station specific. So if you have a format captain for hot AC, right? And then you have a profile, we want that profile to be WRCS HD2 versus, let's say, KRCS FM. They might both get, let's say, the hot AC format, but we're really talking about individualizing these. And I'll tell you why in just a second. So here's my subscription mapping. This is essentially telling GSelector for these hours, what am I getting, right? And you'll notice, by the way, I have here on the right-hand side, this is my subscription. So if I double click on this, you can see that my format is classic rock. And then we have the subscription type, right? So full is everything. That is the publisher saying that here's your full music, traffic, clock, spot, imaging, outline. Everything is here, right? You can either, of course, lock it or keep it with total trust. That's up to you. But that you're getting everything. You're getting everything here. Most users typically like music only because that's essentially saying, I want to maintain my local identity, but just give me the playlist, give me the goods, and I'll fill in the cracks from there. There's also a custom option here too. So you can see from that drop down, I can isolate things I want to include or not include. So maybe you have something like a custom with music and voice tracks, something like that. You can do that in here too if you wanted to. But again, typically most users do music only. There's also local link insert. But again, as I said, music only, that's the big one. From there, we have our trust level, right? So the way the trust level works is we define from the publisher's perspective what what the subscribers are allowed to do once they get that music log. No trust. They can't do anything. This is your music log. You can't touch it. End of the story. Versus, let's say, total trust, which is I'm going to give this to you, but it's really kind of more of a guide in your everyday music log, and you can go ahead and adjust certain things accordingly. And then, of course, there's the middle, right? So let's just keep it simple. If I have a trust level of 5, and this is done on the publisher side of things, in the clock structure in the publisher, which I'll show you, you have an option to find that clock position, right? So you can say that this position has a trust level of 5, okay? If that user has a trust level of, let's say in here, as a 4, they have not hit that 5 mark so that they can't edit that position because the publisher said you need at least a 5 or above to do this. If I had, let's say, a trust level of 9 and the clock position is a 5, well, that's included in my drop down. I'm allowed to edit that particular clock position, right? And so we have a combination of this. Me personally, I found make your lives a little easier here, right? Stick with total trust, no trust, or a mid-range level, depending on what you want to do, how you want to achieve this. But I'll show you in some of my examples how you can really get granular with this. It really depends on what you want to do. There's start dates and end dates. That's for your Christmas formats. If you have an AC, you need to pivot on November 1st to a Christmas, you can do a start date and end date on the AC and start the Christmas and then reverse it again when Christmas is done. There's also a time shift here. This is pretty cool. We even included a new enhancement. So you have 7 days. The idea is that if I have, let's say, going back to that 10 stations in one state example, we'll pick Texas. That's pretty vast, right? So you're not going to have any kind of bleed over for the audience. But just in case you do, and you have something like if you're, like, say, an hour and a half in the middle, you can get station A and station B, right? I might want to deviate some of those music. So I can do, let's say, an hour shift, or you can do what I like to do personally, which is a 7-day shift. So one log gets the last week's music versus this week's music. If you got a classic rock station, it works perfectly, right? Obviously, top 40, maybe you do an hour different, something along those lines. But you can see there's a time shift there, partial hours in the mix too, all of that. And we help you out too with the actual time down below there too. So you can see that we can organize this, and there is no restriction on how you want to organize this. There's a great video we did with me and Scott Farr talking about, very modern hybrid outlines of Zeta and GSelector environments. The idea that you can get, let's say, a AC format. At night, it could be top 40 hot AC. During the day, it can be something more like an AC at work format. And then at night, return back to a more modern hot AC or top 40. You can kind of pick and choose what you want. So you can see for this description, I have classic rock in full. If I go to 9 a.m., I have music only with classic rock and a brand new trust level. Ooh, look at that. And let's just say this one particular example, I don't need to have, middays at noon. Let's say there's something going on there where, I don't know, it's a special, all request hour or something like that. Notice how this station, the WRCS HD2's profile is missing 12 o'clock because that HD2 doesn't need it versus another station like KRCS FM might need that across the board, right? And then if I jump to, let's say, midnight, you can see, or 9 p.m., you can see I have a new profile. It's all classic rock format. This is all music versus full music logs, but the total trust changes from this perspective, right? So this window here is typically a set it and forget it. I start here because we're dictating what the subscriber is going to receive. This is so important because what we found in my expertise is that you forget some of those smaller nuances that the user has on their everyday music log. I have a special 7 o'clock hour. I don't need it for 11. I have a syndicated hour. Or on Sundays at 6 a.m., I run a special, morning show, whatever it could be. These are ways to customize that here in the subscription manager, right? Makes sense? Let's jump back over here to our GSelector. I'm going to go to my RCS Classic Rock first over here. And I want to show you how typically users lock this log, right? That's what they do in the GSelector side of things. So, of course, my GSelector has my colors, has my dark mode enabled here. I'm going to jump to my scheduler, and you can see down below right here, those two orange lines. See that nice row over there? That is essentially me, the publisher, locking that log. What I do is I highlight this. Remember, work smarter, not harder. Can always click and shift if you wanted to. So I'm going to do like this, something like that. Remember, click and shift in the scheduler. I can also double click on this date range here. Highlights the entire day. Super, super easy. I can right click, publication status, IHM custom lock. That's my label there. Yours can be whatever you want it to be. This is typically essentially a locked position. And then from there, boom, that's it. We're done. It's locked. It's good. It's good to go. Be aware if you ever lock a log, send it, and then something happens, like a change. We always use the comparison when Prince passed away. You want to add, let's say, additional Prince records. You can always go back into your publisher log, right click, publication status, open for editing. Remember, this is telling you what you want it to do. If you have locked a log, you can't edit that because it is locked by definition. If you need to edit it again, open it back for editing, make your change, go back here, right click, publication status, and then re-lock your log for distribution. That's what we're doing there. And just showing you very quickly, jumping to the clocks section here. And again, any questions on this, let me know. You'll see over here, there's a lock level right here. See that lock level? That's where the publisher defines, based on the position, what the user and subscriber can and can't do based on that lock level. So now we're going to pivot from the publisher side to the subscriber side. The subscriber, again, is going to receive their profile as defined by the subscription manager. And if the log is locked by the publisher, when they jump to the editor and they schedule their logs, we're going to bring in that music log. Now, remember, we just did it together in the overnights, full log load. At 10 a.m., music only. At 11 p.m., total trust. Let's look at how that kind of translates into the GSelector editor world. So we're at midnight. Look at all these locked positions. Now, this is dark because I have my actual formatting here as well. And as you know, we always offer tips and tricks in these RCS lives. Tools, global settings, appearances, assignments for. I know I'm moving quick here for time. If you scroll down, here's a great example. What is going on here? What is, if you ever have in your GSelector, like I'm trying to find a color that's odd for whatever reason. What is going on here? Well, I can see it's black and it's blue. Okay. Well, it's not the analysis tab, so we can move on from there. And I can scroll down and just match up on what it is. Oh, there's black and green. Not what we're doing here. We're scrolling and, oh, look at that. Locked rows, schedule subscription, black and high and left, right? So there's that row. We can always change that font color if we wanted to by saving it there. But I have mine just locked with that black and blue. There you go. That's good to go. Everything is locked. If I jump over here and hit K or something, it's not going to do anything at all, right? If I jump, let's say 12 o'clock, right? You can see at 12, I think do more like 11 here, right? So I do something at 11. I have, let's see here, the top of the hour right there. Okay. So look, I have some locked positions here and I have some non-locked positions. Like I can go to Lenny Kravitz and change Lenny Kravitz if I wanted to, right? And the reason for that is because from my publisher's clock structure, I have locked certain positions here. So you can have, let's say, a locked 80% of the hour's log, but leave some local positions that could be then treated with overrides to maintain that local identity in your GSelector environment. So think of, again, I'm just going to other Texas country, whatever it is, right? If you want to have a geographic region of Texas country, whatever that may be, you might have an overall log, but then you might have individual positions that are catered to that geographic region. Or if you have an AC format or a hot AC format, but the station leads a little more top 40 versus a little more hot AC, maybe the last song before the spot block in the hour is a flex position. And then maybe you include an override from the subscriber's perspective that says, if I have access to override this position, do it and schedule locally with a special filler category as defined by the subscriber. I'm getting real deep there. What I'm trying to tell you is this: overrides, and we can cater this to however you want it to sound. The best thing to do, remember, you've seen my past RCS live videos with GSelector. GSelector will only do what you tell it to do. So if you want to do something, ask us in support, call into your local RCS contact and tell them I'm trying to do this, and we'll get you that result in GSelector, right? So you can see here, there's some locked positions, some not locked positions. In this particular example, I actually did a 90s at noon for the subscribing station. So what we do there is we have a thing called a local break, which is kind of like an interrupt inside the GSelector scheduling process. The idea there, if I jump to my clocks over here for a quick second, you can see my 90s at noon. There's a local block there, 90s at noon. In my clock station here, local blocks. There's my 90s at noon. I'm saying play a song category 90s at noon and then call it a day, right? That's what I'm doing here. Jumping back to my GSelector's linear, right where you left off. It's right here. There's my 90s at noon. I'm playing these 3 songs. I am closing, right, my 90s at noon, showing me that I have had a local break. Local break is over. And I return back to my typical music log via the S3. Does that make sense there? Any questions on that? Radio C, any questions on there? Let me know, okay? So that's ways of overriding it. Position by position, do a local break. That could be also for a top 5 at 5, top of the hour news, stuff like that. Ways to essentially say, hey, interrupt the S3 starting here and return back at the end of the day. So let's see, number 10 o'clock at night. Notice how this is not black, and that's because we have total trust. Remember down here, total trust. This is a go to town subscriber. It's after 7 p.m. Do whatever you want to do, right? And if you don't want to have an S3 profile, you don't need that guide, then you simply don't assign a profile mapping for 7 o'clock to, let's say, midnight, something like that. But this is the full total trust. So you can see 12 o'clock, you get everything. You can't change nothing. I got my 10 a.m. Okay, here's some positions that are locked, the most important music. Here's some positions you can kind of flex and move around if you wanted to. 12 o'clock, these are your overrides in here, right? I have a local break. I'm overriding my schedule to include these elements and then return back to the typical S3 format. And by the way, in regards to numbering, right? Very, very, very simple. If I'm a publisher and I have 15 songs an hour and I have a subscriber and my subscriber clocks have 10 songs, I will receive the first 10 songs from the S3 publisher, and that's it. Because remember, we maintain local identity with a music-only S3 subscription. So on the flip side, if I have 15 from the publisher and the subscriber has 20 songs in their clock structure, we'll do the first 15 in order, overriding every single music position. And then the last 5 we'll schedule locally as defined by your clock structure for the subscribers, right? Make sense? In addition to that, there's some other options here too. I'm going to jump for a quick second, going to the setup here for time purposes. I'm going to give you a last chance to ask any questions on here. So Bruno, if you got questions, I'm just pulling on my little chat here. Or Roy, if you have any questions, let me know. Setup over here and station interface. There's my little S3 here. Put in the IP address, put in the subscriber profile. This is the same one as defined by right here, just so you know. And then from there, just a couple options here to show you what we can do. Allow clock overrides is what I'm talking about earlier. That's going to be essentially if you're pulling in an S3 music log, but a particular position itself has an override at the scheduling process, you can do it there. Otherwise, we go to the trust, and the trust allows the user to manually edit that position, right? Automatic versus manual. From there, we have some local clocks here. There's some new settings here. So you might see this a little bit different if you have S3 right now. We have some unique options in the 5.1 that we included. And there's also an alternate, custom ID here if you want to put that in there too. So matching on something else. So that's right. If you have new music, they get sent across as well in that process, right? One last final thing, tools, configuration, jobs. Click this drop down. There's a couple things here. I'm going to double click some of these. Check schedule, subscription. We'll do generate schedule. So there's a couple of these that are in the mix. You can kind of combo this any way you want based on some automatic settings. The idea here is starting with the publisher. If you want to make sure that, let's say, your publisher is doing what they're supposed to be doing or not supposed to be doing, you can see here and say, let's say every day or let's say every Wednesday at 5 o'clock, make sure the publishers have their logs locked and published. You can say, here it is, run this every, whatever at 5 o'clock. And then from there, if they have not locked their logs, send upon failure, let me know so I can reach out to my publisher and tell them need to do your log there. Right, Anthony? Thank you. I appreciate the feedback there. Yeah. Ooh la la, indeed. Yeah. Very, very cool stuff. So this is where we're trying to introduce some automatic options for you, right? Check publication status, let me know, right? Or on the flip side, generate the schedule, right? You can also, this is relatively brand new here as well. So if you want to generate a schedule and you have S3 enabled, when you automatically generate the schedule and there's a log in there that's locked and ready to go, we'll pull that log in for you here. And there's even some schedule subscription options too from the subscriber and publisher perspective. The biggest thing here is get newly published schedule. Let's say that Anthony is a format captain. Congratulations, Anthony. You have got your classic rock log done. It's sent. Something happens and an artist passes away. You then go back to your GSelector. Don't forget, you can do this in Selector to Go as well. I can open up my my scheduler. I can open my log for editing, make my changes, relock the log. And if you're a subscriber that has defined that get the newly published schedule, we will pull in those music changes. And if you have Zeta, by the way, obviously live log integration with Zeta and GSelector, that means that the publisher will relock the log. The subscriber has an option that if there's a change, bring in the change. If you have a live log, that change is instantly reflected over in Zeta. You can have this all automated if you wanted to as well. Really, really cool stuff. Think of your HD2s for a second. Think about automating your HD2s and making them sound great automatically, maximizing your staff. That's why we're talking about the GSelector S3 right now. And there's also a publisher option here. So notify the administrator of a subscription change by subscriber or an override. That's a little checks and balances, making sure that you don't have anybody going rogue. It's true, unfortunately. There are some program directors out there in the world that are told not to do something and they do it anyway. And that is not my place here nor there. But there are some times where if somebody ignores the S3 and purposely, maliciously tries to delete it, we have users that do that. That's just a little override, letting the administrator know that there's a change by the schedule, right? Makes sense? Cool stuff. Last call for questions here, right? So any Nick, Bruno, Anthony questions, let me know here. So to summarize, GSelector's S3 schedule subscription service, you can scale it at a much wider scale. Have one publisher log, one master music format, send to all the subscribers all across where you want it to be. Or you do what a lot of our users are doing and you find unique examples of this. So you do the HD2s, right? You piggyback HD2 formats. You have a couple stations geographically a couple hours away. Why have each individual user doing the same music log? Especially if it's classic rock, classic hits, those gold-based formats, why not do an S3? send it across. Crazy enough, one last example for you. I have a university for colleges and universities out there. This one particular one has essentially 4 formats. They do like a midnight to 6, 6 to 12, 12 to 6, 6 to midnight. It's like a hip hop, top 40, rock, and whatever it is, the 4th format in there. They want to maximize their staff and their students getting to know real-time radio. So they do is they have a program director, music director for every format. We actually built them 4 stations. So there's a hip hop station, top 40 station, rock station. Each have their own PDs and MDs, and they go into GSelector. They schedule 6 hours of music, and they lock their logs. And then here's the beauty of S3. The administrator of the college then goes in once a week, schedules the master format, which pulls in all 4 of the collective music logs, and then outputs that to their automation, right? See, I'm trying to get you some creativity going here. That's the idea. So hopefully you really enjoyed GSelector's S3. Don't forget to check your backups, beta users as well, in Zeta 522.1 and GSelector 5.1. And of course, we're also hiring too. Don't forget, it's a very rare opportunity. The FTS installation team, that's going to be on our website, rcsworks.com rcsworks.com, the About Us and Careers. Sorry, I saw Anthony's comment here for a second. Did the browse lists get updated? Any new features there? Anything specific, Anthony, that you're curious about? Anthony was, sorry, I should probably show this. Anthony was asking about browse lists. Updated any new features there? I don't believe so. On the browse list side of things, what am I doing here? Browse lists, dragging things over. This is what Anthony's talking about here. I'm just picking a bunch of songs. Don't forget, we have past videos. If you want to create a browse list and schedule based on it, you can go by artist and have an A to Z artist weekend or a title A to Z. Double click on this to start the new element here. So Wallflowers kicks it off first. I give the top of the list, direction, counter, bookmark up and down. I can save this. A couple other options here as well. Trying to just show you, Anthony, and see if anything catches your eye that might be different. Not going to change or save my settings. Jump to the clocks here, of course. We go to definition. There's an option here, a little drop down for browse lists. And of course, pick your browse list here as well. And of course, your clock goal, bookmark, or top specific random. That's also in there too. Did that answer your question, Anthony? I know there's like a 15-second delay here, but I'll give you a couple seconds. But I don't think there's, if I recall, nothing too crazy over there. Sorry. Yeah, thank you, Anthony. Yeah, I appreciate it. We work on the fly, Anthony. That's how we roll here in these RCS lives, right? I appreciate you checking in. I really do. Okay. I'll see you next Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time for another RCS Live. Have a fantastic rest of your day.